You know what time it is. Yo, homie, peep
this!
this! Tempo, check it out, you know he makes it funky, and he's good to go. Bang, catch the move, New York, LA, and San Francisco.
Tempo's in the house tonight. You know it's gonna move your mind. The groove is out of sight. As funky as you wanna be, Tempo's in the house tonight. You know it's gonna move your mind. The groove is out of sight. As funky as you wanna be.
Wow, Tempo is a fucking bum! Alright, so today I'm going to be talking about Super Tempo, a 2D platformer for the Sega Saturn, which was only ever released in Japan. Normally I would have to go on a whole spiel explaining who and what Tempo is, which is an obscure platforming game for the Sega 32X. But luckily I already made a whole video talking about the first game, so you can go check that out if you need context. And if you really don't want to watch it, then well, Tempo is a grasshopper and his girlfriend Katie is a butterfly. And I guess that's kind of all the context you need, really. As I mentioned, this is a game that only came out in Japan, so I never had a chance to play it as a kid. I first became aware of it when I watched a very good Let's Play of it back in 2008, shout out to Doc Future, but I only finally got around to playing it myself quite recently. Thankfully, Sega Saturn emulation has come a long way in the past 17 years, so now it's my job to play the game and explain it to you. Because you don't play untranslated Japanese 2D platformers for the Sega Saturn in your spare time. Because you're a bad person. Now you might be thinking, hey, just because I don't play old untranslated Sega Saturn games doesn't make me a bad person. Actually, yes, it does. So for your punishment, you can either watch this video, or you can close it right now and go play through all of Tri-Rush Deppy yourself. Your choice. Yeah, that's what I thought. So the story in this game is a little confusing, and I'm not entirely sure how it relates to the events of the first Tempo game. I guess let's start by going over the opening cutscene. Alright, so the story begins in some fucking place called Fairy Tale Ginza with a big clown castle. There's this character who I always thought was a princess, but according to a translation of this cutscene I read, this is actually Prince Kante Maru, who is irresponsibly making everyone rich by just throwing tons of money away. Go off, king, I guess. I mean, go off, prince. Anyways, that doesn't even matter because a giant mechanical planet named Tekunochi appears and zaps the castle away, taking the prince captive and I guess turning all the little children into evil fucking chuds. Meanwhile, in Music World, Tempo and Katie are poor for some reason, going around begging for money. We can see the generic ant people still exist, although they aren't featured quite as prominently in this game. Also, I don't really understand how this aligns with the end of the first game, where presumably they got a bunch of money for being on the Major Minor show, but whatever, maybe they just blew it all already or something, who knows. Then they see a blue bird, and they decide they want to chase it for some fucking reason, I don't know. I guess because historically blue birds have always been associated with happiness and new beginnings or some shit. It doesn't matter. They chase the bird, and it takes them all the way to an epic clown house. And that's the opening cutscene. Alright, so starting the actual game, each level begins with Major Minor giving you a briefing on the upcoming stage. He's kind of big bossified in this game, both in that it seems like he's apparently missing an eye now, and he's also sort of commanding you around for some reason. He honestly has a very different vibe from how he did in the first game, where he looks like kind of a fucking nerd. He didn't really do or say much, despite ostensibly being the host. Like, this guy wasn't fucking Tenna, okay? He basically just showed up to dust off Tempo's face before boss fights. In this game, he gives Tempo quite a lot of information before the stage starts. Information which is probably pretty useful to have because it's quite a lot of dialogue. Again, it's a 2D platformer, so Japanese proficiency isn't really required to play and enjoy it, but he does explain some of the weirder or more esoteric stage objectives that you might have to trial and error your way into figuring out without his hints. You'll see what I mean. So he explains the objective of level 1 is to go into a cave and kill a big frog guy, as seen on the map here. Alright, now we get to the actual gameplay, and despite looking quite similar, Super Tempo is a very different feeling game from Tempo for the 32X. It's definitely a good deal easier, and his moveset has been greatly simplified. Tempo can no longer run, crouch, kick, slide, or snap to create music notes which stun the enemy. In this game, Tempo can basically do 3 things. He can walk, he can jump, although jumping on enemies no longer hurts them, and finally he can attack by using his bubble fiddle. He plays a little fiddle which creates bubbles which can trap an enemy, after which he can pop it to kill them. Unlike the first game, you don't glide by pressing jump again in the air, you glide by playing the fiddle. Funny enough, the fiddle animation only lasts for a couple seconds, but you can glide indefinitely by just mashing the button. This can actually produce bubbles way faster than just holding it, so even though it looks goofy, this is kind of the optimal way to use the fiddle. Why does Tempo play a fiddle in this game? I don't know. I guess it has something to do with him being a grasshopper, because, you know, they make sounds in real life by rubbing their weird legs together. Or maybe it's just a reference to the grasshopper and the ant fable, or honestly, who cares? I like his bubble fiddle, it's pretty cute. God, the animations in this game are so good. Look how bouncy he is when he walks, and look how much he stretches out when he's starting the fiddle animation to really sell the motion. As you can see in the top left, Tempo's health is represented by these pink jelly bean looking things, and instead of being healed by any music note, now Tempo can only be healed by these like pies or cookies or whatever the hell they are, which you need to find in these sentient purses. Watch out, sometimes they're evil and they'll turn red and try and kill you. Even the way death works in this game is kind of odd. Dying doesn't restart the stage or even send you back to a checkpoint. If you run out of health, Tempo will just fall down and die, but if you press start, you get to continue from where you left off. I know it's just a cute little reference to grasshoppers shedding their skin, but the way he bursts out of it and leaves his old skin lying on the ground is a little peculiar. Alright, it's everyone's favorite part of the video, ad time. I know people don't even like watching my videos. They're all just waiting for the part with the 5 ad to start because they want to see those beautiful gummies again. They've got all your favorite terpenes and they're shipped directly to your door. They're 100% legal for now, so you better hurry up and buy some of these before the stupid laws get changed again. Inexplicably, these gummies are just as good or even better than what you can get at the dispensary. These gummies are fast acting, they hit in 10 minutes or less. And the best part is even if you're a weirdo shut-in who never leaves the house, you can get them delivered right to you! I'm grateful to 5 for all their support over the past year, so I didn't have to shill any AI or sports betting crap, just these awesome edibles. So get a free bag of 5's Quick Hits gummies, just pay shipping, and returning customers can get 50% off. Like I always say, buy the fucking gummies or go to hell. So, level 1. We come up through the ground in a drill thingy, and here we are in the first stage. It's a pretty normal looking grassy forest type area. You can bounce on this panda near the start to find a doll. There are various items like this scattered throughout the stages that you can find and collect for your clown house. It also gives you a 1-up. Also check it out, this game had a reference to that cordyceps fungus way before The Last of Us. Anyways, we come across a few more children we can kill. Then this guy whips out his little dick and starts pissing on this spiky plant, pushing it towards you. So you have to push it back with bubbles, and eventually it squishes and kills him with like a fucking Aqua Teen Hunger Force ass explosion. Then we come across my favorite guy. I love the cute frog enemies in this game. Sometimes I let them eat Tempo just because it looks funny. You're gonna mash the button to escape, and even though he looks fucking skeletonized, it only does a half a jelly bean's worth of damage. He takes a few more hits, but you can bubble and pop the frogs too. Then we jump in the water, which has some tadpole enemies in it. There aren't too many swimming sections in the game, but when underwater, Tempo can just blow bubbles to attack enemies. Hit the target on this hilariously oversized tadpole and it sends you flying up here, where we discover all that water was just this one guy's piss. That's awesome! Once you get past the main part of the stage, you come to this room before the frog cave. There's this weird pink creature that moves away from you if you try to walk towards it. What you need to do is slowly tap right to sidle along and touch it, which turns it into an invisible jelly bean which you can pick up to increase your max health. Okay, here's another really weird thing about this game that I don't really know when I should bring up. When you pause the game, there are 2 options. You probably just assume this is like continue and quit or something like that, but no. When you pause the game, your only choice is to choose between the game's 2 different soundtracks. On the left is just the way the game normally sounds, but if you choose the option on the right, the game sounds totally different.
Shabadaba shabadaba jump one one jump shabadaba shabadaba one shabadaba shabadaba shabadaba.
For whatever reason in this mode there's no music and all the sound effects are done with someone's voice. So I guess this is like Tempo's canonical voice. Anyways, this next section used to always confuse me. There are a bunch of frogs you can jump on to cross the pond. They each make a sound increasing in pitch and show a Japanese syllable. However, when you get to the last 2, they just play an audience laughter sound effect. This is one of those puzzles that would be trivial for any Japanese person, but is difficult to figure out without the necessary cultural context. What you have to do is jump on their heads in the correct order to recreate a very famous Japanese children's song about frogs, Kaeru no Uta. This is what it sounds like. When done correctly, the frog statue in the background blasts off into the sky and you're rewarded with another valuable doll collectible and a bunch of music notes. After that, it's into the frog house to fight the first boss. After falling down onto a lily pad, we see the next boss is actually a giant frog robot piloted by one of those ant guys. So this boss literally only has 2 attacks. He sends up a bunch of spikes in the air that you have to twirl left and right to avoid as they come back down. And then he'll spit up a few tadpoles that you have to kill with your bubbles. Eventually one of the tadpoles will drop a cow gi, which Tempo puts on to transform and get all buff. So once you're swole, you have to start mashing the buttons in order to outflex the stupid frog. Eventually he pops and goes blasting off again, Team Rocket style, and that's the end of the first level. At the end of every stage, your points are totaled up and you're awarded a specific type of item, of which you're given 3 choices. At the end of the game, the total value of all these items you get, plus the ones from exploring the stage, are added up, which affects the ending you receive. Okay, so in level 2, we are moving past the frog cave into the spooky, haunted town of Bremen. It's full of creepy zombies, mummies, and bats. It's great. This stage is also less linear than the previous one. For example, you can press up to walk down paths or to go into houses. In this house, you can find a brain just chilling on a table. This is like one of those pink jellyfish looking things, where if you just slowly creep over to it, you can pick it up to increase your max health. Tempo can also ride on the windmills. Jumping off can launch you super far, which is pretty fun. Pretty soon you'll stumble across the ghost of a donkey who begins to follow us. You see, Major Minor actually explains that the goal of this stage is to find the ghost of a donkey, a dog, a cat, and a rooster, so ultimately at the end of the level they can stack on top of each other and play a song for you. That might sound odd, but it's actually based on a real-life German fairy tale called The Town Musicians of Bremen. It tells the story of 4 animals who grew tired of being mistreated and ran away to become musicians in the town of Bremen. At night they stumble across some robbers in a house and scare them off by stacking themselves on top of each other and making a terrifying sound. The robbers flee thinking the animals are some kind of monster, and the animals decide to move into the house. Anyways, I mean, there's plenty of different versions of the story, and I glossed over some of the details, but that's basically the gist of it. It's one of the stories collected and published in Grimm's Fairy Tales. Again, in terms of cultural context, I think this particular fairy tale is much more well known in Japan and Russia for whatever reason. A really cute touch is every time you collect another animal, their instrument is added to the background music. It's kind of a simple thing, but it's a really nice detail. So to find the dog, you have to go up past this sign and select the right animal out of the hedge. I mean, I guess this is a puzzle, but since the dog is the only animal here that we're looking for, it's clearly the correct choice. Oh yeah, this stage also features an arcade and an accounting building. The accounting building just lets you cash in your points early if you're trying to get a specific prize. The arcade is a lot like how it was in the first Tempo game. There are 3 different mini-games you can play. The first is basically just the pizza game again, where you have to sneak pieces of pizza to the beat of the song without your bitch aunt wife seeing you. The second game is just another karate rhythm game. It's different from the one in the first Tempo, but it's just more or less the same kind of thing. The most interesting minigame is the final one, called Samurai. Unlike all the other minigames, this one isn't just about pressing the button in rhythm with a beat that gets progressively faster. It's actually a reaction timing game. The goal of this one is to patiently wait for the sound of the gong, then press the button as fast as you can. If you do it right, you cut down the other guy. If you wait too long or press it early, then you get killed instead. If this seems familiar, it's probably because it's exactly like the Samurai Kirby game from Kirby Superstar. Anyways, climbing the roof of the game center, we can find this ominous looking coffin with chicken legs sticking out. Touch it in order to collect the rooster. We now have 3 of the 4 animals, we just need the cat. And in order to collect the cat, we're gonna have to switch characters. That's right, in this game when you find one of these revolving door things, you can go through it to actually play as Katie. Katie in this game is awesome, not just because she's cute, but she can literally fly, and her weapon is like a flamethrower. It might be a hairdryer that spits fire or something, I can't exactly tell, but either way, it's great. It's very fun to just be able to fly around the stage as freely as Katie. And of course, when Katie dies, instead of shedding her skin like Tempo, she bursts out of a cocoon. She also has her own voice lines, of course, in the other audio mode. Oh, and just like how every normal enemy has a trapped in the bubble sprite for Tempo, they also have like a burnt to death sprite for Katie. So the final animal is the cat, who's up in a house in the clouds above the windmills from the start of the level. Just gotta fly up there as Katie and go touch the cat's grave. Then a decapitated cat ghost will stroll out before reattaching his head and joining you. You know, as a Saturn game, Super Tempo uses a lot of dithering to create what would be a nice little transparency effect that looks great on an actual CRT like they expected people to have when they designed this game. Unfortunately, it doesn't look quite as good on modern displays, but you can just use your imagination. Anyways, with all 4 animals, we can finally head through this door to the end of the stage. The boss fight takes place at a skeleton biker bar apparently, against Little Red Riding Hood and her big bad wolfmobile. I always thought it was kind of a weird choice for a boss for the spooky level, but I guess it makes sense as another one of Grimm's fairy tales. Anyways, she mostly just attacks you by either driving or flying across the screen, so blast her with the flamethrower when you can. Her other attack is spawning a bunch of sheep around you, and if one of them touches you, then you'll fall asleep and get hit by her car. But she's pretty easy and goes down without too much trouble. Once that's taken care of, Katie heads over to the clown house and begins to conduct the Bremen musicians as they play their little song. For whatever reason, their song causes a giant clown hand to sprout from the ground and carry the clown house up into the sky, and that's the end of the second level. The third stage actually begins with some story developments before the briefing from Major Minor. Some kind of freaky evil mask appears, I guess it's called the Techno Mask, and it attaches itself to Tempo, causing him to transform into an evil metal version. He then bursts through the wall of the clown house and flies away. So Major Minor explains we're up in the sky now, I guess. We gotta save Tempo, obviously, so we gotta go over to this sky palace. Interestingly, the BBs show up, who were like a boss in the first game, but I guess they're like good guys now or something. I mean, I guess they weren't technically bad guys in the first game, they're just like other contestants on the Major Minor show, but whatever. The point is, they're back. So this level is actually basically like a shmup. You fly around as Katie shooting fire, and the premise is the BBs fly around, dropping these numbered tapes which you can pick up. Each tape corresponds to a retro-themed challenge, usually based on some old arcade game. These are pretty cute and inventive, and a good way to earn a lot of points. It's also kind of interesting how it's not like a set pattern or purely randomized. It's always in the order of the tapes that you collect, so you can avoid certain challenges if you don't like them. In fact, bizarrely, if you want to, you can avoid all the challenges. If you just don't pick up any tapes, then you won't do any of the challenges. Your progress in this level is not tied to completing a certain amount of tapes. It's just set to end after about 3.5 minutes, no matter what. So if you want to, you can just like chill on the bottom right corner of the screen and do nothing, and then you'll still beat this part of the level. Anyways, that brings us to the boss of the stage. A big robot chicken that's also a harp, I guess. The first phase of the fight is you just shoot the bouncing eggs until eventually one of them drops a boxing glove. Just like how Tempo can transform with a Cowgie, Katie can also transform. In the next part, you have to hit the eggs back into the tornado. It's a little orangey whether they go in or not, but just hit enough eggs back and eventually you'll get to the last phase. It's basically just another timing game. The chicken will run at you, so you have to time your punches. It gets faster and faster to the point where you basically have to be throwing out your punch as soon as he touches the ground. But eventually, we'll go down. The level isn't quite over yet though. There's one more little section where you have to fly through and melt a bunch of ice walls as evil Tempo shoots lightning bolts at you. Once you melt all the ice, you can swoop in to kiss him and free him of the influence of the evil mask. Then Tempo and Katie embarrassingly reuse a dancing animation from the 32X game, and the level is over. The fourth level is actually kind of normal by comparison. As Major Minor helpfully points out, we will be climbing the waterfall area. At the start of this stage, there are a bunch of those pink jellyfish things so you can max out your HP. You can increase your max health up to 8 jelly beans, but the game is kinda weirdly stingy about health. When you beat a stage, your health is not refilled between levels, and when you die, you always respawn with only 5 health, not whatever your new maximum is. There's honestly not too much to say about this level, other than it has parts where you can be Super Tempo or Super Katie during regular gameplay. I don't know if that's actually what those transformations are called, but that's what I'm calling them. Basically, you can just run around for a little bit while invincible, and you're able to destroy enemies in one punch, which is pretty nice. But yeah, for the most part, you can just climb the waterfall area, jump around on some clouds, and you can get to the end of this one pretty quickly. It's a relatively short level. Although, once again, at the end we see Tempo and Katie do that reused dance animation from the 32X game. Honestly, Tempo doesn't look that different, but watching Katie snap into her way less detailed 32X design looks pretty bad. So after this is the boss fight against the giant enemy crab robot. I'm gonna be honest and say this is the most annoying boss fight in the game for me. He's not even that hard, but he can just take a really long time to kill first, because you gotta break both his claws. Maybe it's just a skill issue on my part, but sometimes he does that wave attack over and over again, during which he's not vulnerable at all, so all you can do is wait. but eventually he'll go down. The little ant guy piloting him gets all pissed off and throws the steering wheel at you before getting electrocuted. Great stuff. After that crab battle, you can actually turn around and pick up the steering wheel for a free 1-up, which is nice. Then Tempo goes into the cave and inside the clown house, and the level ends. So, level 5. This is a weird level even within the context of this game. It starts out normal enough. You have to jump up the falling rocks to climb up this tower, which has these music notes on rotating gears. Once you're at the top, you have to fight this laser bird before the door opens. And I hope you were paying attention to the order of those notes on the gears going up the tower, because that's the password to get past this room. Get it wrong and you have to start all over. And yes, the notes are randomized every playthrough. Of course, Major Minor tells you about this, assuming you can read Japanese. After entering the password, a platform lifts you up into the clown house, which is now being pulled through the sky by a unicorn. The interior of the clown house now resembles a spaceship, and Major Minor explains we gotta pilot this thing directly to that technodrome-ass looking planet thing to destroy it. So now you have to fly the clown house through melody space, and it's very hard to convey just from the video, but trust me, this thing is difficult to control. It's very floaty and carries a lot of momentum. Anyways, this looks like it's going to be another shmup section or something, but it's not. You don't shoot at all, you just have to navigate through without hitting any of the asteroids. However, while there is no shooting, there is a music quiz section. Some katakana proficiency would definitely help you out a lot in this stage, otherwise you might have to do a lot of guessing. The quiz is also randomized, or rather each specific question has a number of different possible variations. Like the first question is asking you about a short little tune. If you're on the correct path, there will be a cheerleader, but if you take the wrong path, it'll send you to a black hole which will warp you back to your last checkpoint. The second question shows you a picture of an instrument and asks you to identify it. Again, this one's not too hard if you can read a little katakana. There's some more precise maneuvering sections, including through a bunch of floating pizza slices before getting to question 3. You have to identify a famous composer based on their picture. Like in this run I had to identify Beethoven, but there are also others, like it could have shown me a picture of Bach instead, for example. The fourth question is about identifying 2 notes, which isn't too bad. But the fifth and final question asks you to identify a piano key, which corresponds to the note shown. In this case it was Mi, so pick the 3rd key up, Do, Re, Mi. Or just keep this fucking chart handy if you want to cheat. If you pick the wrong answer, Tempo and Katie die horribly, so you probably should use the chart. After the quiz section, the background goes black and hits you with a freaking bullet hell section. Okay, maybe that's a slight exaggeration, but again, this clown house is rather unwieldy to control, and they throw a lot of shit at you pretty fast near the end. But once you're done with that section, you enter the big-ass freaking technodrome and the level ends. No boss or anything. Well, I mean, I guess that last section with all the planets was kind of the boss. So right after that, the 6th and final level begins. No message from Major Minor or anything. So this is the inside of the giant evil robot planet sphere of death. Not exactly the vibe I was expecting. It's weirdly a lot like the final level from the original Tempo for some reason. It feels more like a big hotel. In fact, some of the rooms in this stage are basically just recreations of ones from that level. This is also the longest level in the game by a fairly wide margin. The very first thing you do after the level starts is kill a cop. Nice. There are a ton of random rooms you can go in to fight enemies or get extra points or stuff. This stage features a lot of enemies from previous levels, which is a classic final level trope. There's a big room where you have to fight against the wind to get to the end. The Cowgie helps a lot and lets you deal with the annoying ninja enemies. But at the end of this room you get into an elevator and go up, again just like the last game. You arrive at a laboratory type area, and the first thing you see after the doors open is a giant dissected frog in a glass tube, which is lovely. You get to play as Katie for a bit. Using Super Katie to clear out all the enemies in this area is pretty helpful. But unfortunately when you reach this door, Katie can't go through, presumably because the sign says man. Like I guess this is the entrance to a male onsen. So you gotta go back to the revolving door and switch to Tempo. This takes you to a bathroom with a big frog in it. After dealing with him, dive into the bathtub for another short swimming section. There's this like robot lobster enemy, which I swear is only seen in this one room in the whole game, and you can easily just swim right past it if you want. I killed him because I wanted to see his in the bubble animation. Anyways, after the pool room where you bounce across the frogs, they do a rerun of everyone's favorite stupid gag from the final level of the original Tempo. There's 3 elevator doors, and only the one on the right will take you forward. The first door takes you down a level, and the middle door sends you back to the beginning of the level. Such a hilarious dick move, the developers had to pull it twice! So after one more room inexplicably recreated from the original final level, we reach the top of the Technodrome, where we can see the prince being held captive. The bird directs us to jump and press a button on the right side, which causes a large tower to spring up. The 2 doors on the bottom are another chance to access the game center and accounting room if you want. but to progress you need to head through the door at the top. We see Tempo and Katie looking at this weird door and then deciding to split up. And then the game does the one thing that I actually think really fucking sucks and kind of kills the pacing of this final level. We're subjected to a boss rush. It doesn't ruin the whole game or anything like that, but it just feels really unnecessary. Like, no offense, but these bosses aren't like really in-depth mechanical tests that I just can't wait to play again. They're more like cool set pieces. This isn't a Mega Man boss rush where you have all the boss weaknesses and you can just blitz right through it. As far as I can tell, this is just fighting all the bosses again, with literally nothing changed about the fights. So first we play as Katie fighting the robot chicken guy again. After that, a mysterious eyeball appears and kidnaps her in some kind of energy prison. It takes her away and we switch over to playing as Tempo. You do actually get an extremely brief little platforming section as Tempo here, which I like. There's even a section where you have to make some precise jumps using windmills, which is kind of annoying, but not too hard after a little trial and error. After this room, Tempo begins his boss rush. You gotta fight that annoying crab guy again, Little Red Riding Hood, which at least if you fought her as Katie originally, then fighting her as Tempo is a little bit different. Then inexplicably the boss rush ends with you fighting the first boss of the game. After that is a quick section where you have to swim up and avoid touching these weird metal things which electrocute you, and once you get to the top, it's time to fight the final boss. Katie is in the background hooked up to some kind of giant machine. After a moment, it spits out a clone of Tempo. This guy can actually hit you with bubbles, so we get to see a cute little Tempo trapped in a bubble animation. Interestingly, you can shoot all the bubbles you want at the other Tempo and it doesn't matter. You actually need to aim for the katakana character above his head. Once again, they're do, re, mi, etc. After you hit it enough times, it starts staying way above his head and you can only hit it when it swings down at the apex of his jump. Eventually you'll defeat him and then you have to fight the only thing scarier than one Tempo. 2 Tempos. Still pretty easy, it's not too different from the first phase. After dealing with them, then 3 Katies will come out. They fly around shooting fire at Tempo, and it's usually not too hard to hit all 3 of them when they swoop down or fly across the bottom, so they shouldn't be too hard. After that comes the Super Katie fight. Although she can hit you for 2 jelly beans worth of damage, it's not too hard to deal with her if you have proper spacing. Finally, the last one you have to fight is, of course, Super Tempo. He's kind of annoying, but not actually that hard. He basically just walks around and jumps. Every time he lands, he'll cause a screen shake, and if you're touching the ground when that happens, you'll be stunned for a few seconds. Even if you touch the ground after he lands, as long as a screen shake is still happening, you will be stunned. So just try to stay in the air as much as possible, and he's not too bad. After that, the machine is finally destroyed, and Katie and the prince are freed. But the evil eye of the Technodrome thing is still alive, so Tempo gets buffed with the Cowgie, and then Katie puts that freaky Techno mask on him, and for some reason this transforms him into a gigantic robotic dragon. So they climb into his chest cavity, and then he takes off, flying away from the mechanical planet. Then, surprise, there's some Kirby 64 final boss battle bullshit where there's one more fight in some crazy new gameplay style. As the giant dragon, all you can do is shoot and move left and right. Basically, there's no reason not to be shooting at all times, just in case some of your stray shots hit it. Honestly, just keep rotating and shooting and eventually you'll blow it up. Thankfully, this section is not too difficult. In the final cutscene, the clown house falls down to its rightful place and turns back into the clown castle. Tempo receives a letter from Major Minor. I believe in this letter, Major Minor confesses that the Technodrome thing was actually like an invention of his that accidentally turned into a monster, and he says, "Sorry!" The prince then totals up the cost of every object inside your room, and that point total is used to determine your ending. There are 4 possible endings, and the worst ending is still pretty good. It shows Tempo and Katie with a shitload of money. They finally achieved their dream of no longer being bums. The next best ending shows Tempo and Katie even richer, dressed up in fancy clothing in front of the castle in a fancy car. The next best ending is the sexy Katie ending, which shows Super Katie in a bathtub, presumably still rich since I think that tub is made of solid gold. And the best possible ending shows Dragon Tempo and Super Katie sitting on thrones being like worshipped by the ant people, so I guess they became gods in this ending. Also, for whatever reason, the credits have the most penis music of all time. Take a listen, it's awesome. If you stick around after the credits end for 3 minutes, it actually reveals a level select code. To enable round select, hold Y, Z, and R as you start the game, and press L when the words round start is on the screen. If you beat the game on hard mode, there's even additional text about how to select the minigames, which is to press A after the round select number goes past 6. And that is Super Tempo. Alright, you may have thought you just watched a video, but I actually tricked you. This wasn't a video at all. It was just an ad for my Twitch channel. I played through Super Tempo on stream, and that's what gave me the idea to make this video. In fact, the people who saw that stream are probably thinking, what the fuck, this video sucked, it was just him telling me a bunch of shit that happened in Super Tempo, which I already saw. I've showed it before a few times, but I never really streamed on a regular basis, but I've actually been having a lot of fun streaming again, so I'm going to shout it out. I've streamed all sorts of cool games like Fear, Putt Putt Saves at the Zoo, Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, and Space Funeral. Plus some weird shit like this untranslated Japanese pig raising and racing sim for the PS1 called Butage Deinjanai, which basically means, a pig game is okay, isn't it? I also just played a really cool Mario 64 ROM hack called Mario Adventure 2, where you go through the Sonic Adventure 2 stages as Mario. It was really fun. So if you made it this far, you have to go follow me on Twitch. Or if you really don't like Twitch, you can subscribe to my VOD channel on YouTube, Cybershell and Knuckles. I'll have links to both in the description. Sorry if you don't want to hear me beg people to follow my Twitch. I don't like doing it, but it works!